the big scare factor.
Now, if I remember right, they eat the people that they went after?
They did, yes.
Now, right there is, that was scary. If I remember at the beginning of the movie, they were out there with their, motorcycles, going through the sand and all that stuff. And then, it just went from there.
Yeah, the whole movie just kind of spirals out of control from the beginning. And that's actually a decent movie because of that. It's one of those that kept you on the edge of your seat the entire time.
Well, it certainly did with me. Like I said, I couldn't watch the whole thing. Now, didn't they make a sequel to that movie?
They actually, I'm not sure they made a sequel to the original one. I know they modernized it and made they did a recent remake of it, which was still pretty good. And then they sequeled that with The Hills Have Eyes too, where I think they were out in maybe the Vegas desert where they did all the nuclear tests.
Uh-huh.
And the people had been living out there in that one. And they had sent some soldiers in or something like that, and it just spiraled out of control where the mutants were attacking the soldiers, things of that nature. It was basically the same as the first one, but just a different area and a little bit different of a plot. And it was a decent movie, though. It wasn't terrible. It had a lot of creative kills in it. It was a pretty decent, attempt at a sequel. But then there's some movies that could stand alone and don't really need a sequel.
Well, which ones do you feel could?
There's a couple movies out there that I feel that could use a decent sequel. Terrifier. Terrifier is actually getting a sequel.
Now,
I'm happy to see that.
Tell the audience just a little bit about it so they know what it is.
Where I touched on it earlier, Terrifier has it's the whole thing with Art the Clown, the best hacksaw kill I've seen in years. Like I said, it's just a really good film. Netflix has it right now. There's going to be a sequel. I'm not sure when it's going to happen. I do know it's in development, but there's no ifs, ands, or whens with that right now.
Interesting. And a couple other movies you can think of?
There's a couple that I think could use a modern sequel. Because I think the Friday the 13th remake from 2009 could actually use a modern sequel.
No,
because they did extremely well with that remake. Everybody that I know kind of has this whole I don't like it thing because it's not the original Friday the 13th. But if you actually give it a chance and go into it not expecting it to be the original Friday the 13th, the movie stands up really well.
Let's see, that's the problem when they do remakes or something similar to it. The people, they remember the original, right? So the original, it's really hard to replace it. Or even give it a fair chance because, they're used to the original. Then if something comes out, it's very similar to it. They go, oh no, that's just this. And if you never saw the first one, you'd be so engrossed in the second one more than you would have ever been if you saw the first one.
Right. And if here's the way I look at remakes, right? If you go into it with a grain of salt, just go into it knowing that it's not the original movie that you remember. Go into it with a fresh mindset. You'll enjoy a remake a lot better if you just do that.
Oh, yeah. I have to be honest with you. The more I think about it, the movies, I hate to say it, and I don't want to sound strange, but, it's been those type of, I guess, what we were talking about, type movies more than the other type, because, when I really think about, I remember Frankenstein, I remember, the Blob and stuff like that, but I don't remember the scary details, like some of the movies you're talking about, where I, remember how gory and scary, where the hair would stand up, on my arms when you see it. You never know what the next scene is going to be.
Right. And there's a lot of movies like that. Like, I can look back and remember things that scared me as a kid. Like, Jaws 3, for example. I'll use that. Jaws 3 is actually the first horror film I ever saw. And I seem to remember me being very small in a theater with a pair of 3D glasses. My mother and father told me not to get up over the back of the seat. And nowadays people are like, oh my God, whose mother and father brings them to that type of movie at, that age?
Now,
but back then it was common.
Now, which one of the Jaws had Michael Caine in it? Was it the second one or the third?
It may have been the third, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that. It may have been the third one, because the third one was done in 3D.
Okay. Oh, the reason why I mentioned Michael Caine, he's a listener of my show.
Right.
And that's why I kind of mentioned that. But I wish I could remember which Jaws he was in. Because whatever one it was, I really liked it when he was in it. It kind of gave the movie a more of realisticness to it for some reason.
Right, and it certainly did. Let me think just a moment, and I'll see which one he was actually in.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I can't remember which one he was in. I didn't like. I don't think I liked the second one. It was lacking something. The first one, I really kind of liked it. I think they only made, 3 Jaw movies, or did they make 4?
They made 4, and I think he was actually in Jaws the Revenge, which was the last one.
Okay, that might be possible, yeah. So I got to ask you a question. What was going on, you think, with sci-fi with all these shark scary movies, like sharks coming out from the sky, sharks here, sharks there, sharks taking out destroyers, sinking ships, all that stuff. I mean, what is going on, you think, with Hollywood with some of this stuff?
I think, honestly, that Hollywood has ran out of ideas. It's called, let's see how many situations we can put a shark in, because a shark is scary. And here's the point I want to make with that. You've got some TV networks making movies where sharks are in tornadoes, or you have a shark that's been pieced together from other radioactive fish, or you have a zombie shark. I've seen that. I've seen ghost sharks. I've seen sharks that fly. I've seen sharks in the sand. I mean, it's just like we have one network board meeting where they sit back and they're like, hey, what's scary? Oh, a shark. Let's see what we can do with that shark today.
Well, I have to say the one that kind of from the tornado, and it was they were flying every which way and killing people. I'll be honest with you. I couldn't watch very long of it because I'll be honest with you. Unless I was smoking something, which I don't do, or if I was drinking something, which I don't do, would probably been the only way I could have watched it.
Yeah, and I think that those movies, they have their potential, but I don't know that I would really call them horror films. I would call them more of a comedy with some satirical splatter here and there. I mean, Sharknado in itself became a cult phenomenon because it appealed to a lot of different people. And it had its own weird subculture there for a little while. Like, I was even seeing T-shirts at Walmart that said, I survived Sharknado.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
About the third time I watched Sharknado, I didn't survive it because I went to sleep.
Yeah, I would have flipped the channel. Actually, that's what I did. I mean, I couldn't watch more than a few minutes of it. I thought it was, at first, I honestly thought it was a comedy. I mean,
right.
Then I realized I'm watching sci-fi, so it can't be a comedy. But almost as bad as where you have these girls, wearing these tops that are way too small for them and shorts that are way too small for them, and they're out somewhere around a lake, and all of a sudden this big, huge alligator is like, who knows how big it is, big as a Mack pickup truck, comes out and starts eating them. I mean, some of this stuff, I don't know. It's just, it reminds me of going back to the giant lady or the shrinking man or the blob. I think the people in Hollywood are running out of ideas. And I really think that we're advanced enough, that when they try to do remakes of movies that were popular in the 50s just isn't going to fly. So even coming up with those type of ideas, I mean, nowadays people are so much into the gore, blood, they expect, to be in a shock. And some of these movies that come out, you look at them and you go, okay, well, there's a girl there with big boobs and wearing a tight top. And there's really no plot to the whole, movie at all.
Right. And some movies do add a lot of that to take away from the fact that there's not a plot. But again, a lot of horror films have done that for ages. I mean, you look at the old Friday the 13th films where the teenage girls are swimming in the lake, and, you look at things like that, and they just kind of modernized all that to fit with the times.
Yeah, I guess that's
so
true.
They just use that to kind of turn your head away for a moment so you don't realize that the killer is behind her. It's all misdirection in that case.
Yeah. So how do you see, what do you think the future of horror in thrasher type movies? What do you think? Since you're really into it, you go to the conventions and stuff like that. What do you think the future of this? Where's it going to go? What are we going to see here in the next year or two? Are they going to keep putting out crap, or is it going to be some, really, you think, good, exciting movies coming back out?
I feel like that they have a heck of a fan base still. I mean, you go to these conventions and you see people, they actually get to interact with the people they've seen in these films and interact with their heroes and things like that. And you see lines that go forever to just meet these people. So there's still definitely a big fan base for the genre. And I feel like in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a lot of good things from it. We had the new Halloween come out this past little while, and it was definitely a strong sequel to the original. And there was some newer and innovative things in it. We've had Terrifier that came back out, and Terrifier was excellent. I feel like Laid to Rest is an excellent example. There's just so much that we're about to see because Rob Zombie's fixing to release 3 from Hell. I feel like that's going to be good. And I feel like there's just so many more because there was a recent one called Happy Death Day. It was a straight to DVD kind of thing, I think. It might not have been, but I can't remember it actually coming to a theater. And I think it did really well. I liked it.
What was it about?
Happy Death Day. I don't really want to give too much away with that because it's basically a slasher movie. It's centered around another masked killer, and I know you say they've done that 100 times in movies, but Happy Death Day was just a little bit different. But it had a lot of innovative stuff in it, and I feel like if I give away what it's about, it's going to destroy the entire plot line for anybody that's going to want to watch it.
Okay, we don't want to do that.
Right.
Interesting. I don't know. Now I heard something about, and correct me if I'm wrong, a remake about the cabin.
I have not heard anything about that.
Okay, now that could have been fake news or whatever. I saw that about a month ago on Facebook, and then on Twitter, somebody was putting it up there that they were going to make a remake of The Cabin. So I don't know if it's true or not. I mean, a lot of the stuff you read it, and it's not. So I mean, it's people want it to be, so they kind of whatever they convince themselves it's going to be.
Well, it's like a lot of the things you read on social media, where everybody jumps the gun and says, "Oh, this guy's been selected to play Batman," or "This guy's been selected to be that," or Hugh Jackman's going to come back as Wolverine, or something like that. I mean, you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt and just go with the actual news on it. because I mean,